Welcome to Urchfont Church for some behind the scenes footage. I'm munching on a bacon sandwich as some solace because this is the hardest organ I've ever filmed. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but because look at the space I've got to film here. There is practically none. If you've ever wondered how I film these videos, the answer is with difficulty. Guess what? It's raining again, and I'm on my way to a village called Urchfont, deep in the centre of Wiltshire's rolling countryside. Here I'll find a magnificent 13th century church, a stunning graveyard, one of the most incredible church chancels I've ever seen, but best of all, a 2-manual electric action pipe organ. A man walking a dog in the rain. Quintessential English scene. I was always told that umbrellas were a town thing. You shouldn't use them in the countryside, but I don't care about that. I don't want to get wet. I'm sure this place would look great in the sunshine. I can already hear some geese. There's a lovely pond over there. A very charming village green. Plenty to explore here. This is the bench where I would have normally had a cheese and pickle sandwich, but not today. In fact, I've got a bacon sandwich today. The key is 2 pieces of homemade bread, mayonnaise, and 4 pieces of bacon. Welcome to the churchyard of St. Michael and All Angels, Urchfont. Looking spectacular and very imposing. These dull grey buildings certainly do look beautiful on overcast, cloudy days. This is a very special church indeed. Apparently it's one of the England's 1,000 best churches, according to Simon Jenkins anyway. Already looking at these beautiful carvings here really catch my eye. This porch dates from the 15th century. It's actually a couple of 100 years newer than the earliest parts of the church. Let's have a look inside. Wow. Earliest parts of the church, this font, dating from about 1220. Think how many babies have been baptised in there. And the other oldest part of the church is the chancel arch. Notice as soon as you come in, you see that chancel arch is distorted. That's because of the weight of the stone slabs that formed the roof of the chancel, pushed it out of shape. When the Victorians came to restore the church, they considered demolishing it and starting again, but thankfully they didn't. These elegant windows in the transepts date from about 1320 on both sides, and the pattern is called decorated tracery. Most of the stained glass windows are Victorian here, but there is a small piece of medieval glass in the chancel. Speaking of the chancel, this is the crown of this church. This is what was considered by Pevsner to be akin to the roof of Bristol Cathedral. Look at that vaulted ceiling with these ribs spanning each side. It's really, really special. It's the most unique part of this church, of course. A huge memorial here. Underneath are deposited the remains of Olive, wife of Robert Tothill, late senior clerk of the Privy Seal to His Majesty King George II. Memorials like this always remind me of the Shelley poem Ozymandias. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. This is the window which Simon Jenkins said was terrible. And he said it was like Christ dancing the twist. What do you make of it? So, as we come back into the nave and then into the north transept, here, my friends, is the pipe organ of this church. It's large. It needs to be because the building is quite big. It's got a lot of space to fill. The really strange thing, the quirky thing about this organ is how it's tucked into the corner and there isn't much space for the console. It's clearly been made bespoke for this church. In fact, the organ that was here originally has moved to nearby Sturt. Organs always look really imposing and terrifying in situations like this where you can't quite see all of them. It's what Kant described as the mathematically sublime. It's large enough that you can't take everything in. And you can't see me whatsoever. Here's the pipe organ. I'm going to roll the top up after I've taken my coat off and show you this instrument in more detail. Give me a moment to set the cameras up and I'll be right with you. Welcome everyone to the organ loft, if you can call it that, of St. Michael's in Urchfont. This is definitely the pokiest organ loft I've ever been in. Look at this gap. I've put 2 cameras there and one of them hopefully works. It's quite dark here as well, but this is a very big instrument and it fits perfectly into this transept. So we've got 2 manuals here and a full-size pedal board. This is an absolute luxury. Also, let me show you something really cool. Hear that? Good, because it's an electric action. So it has electric action rather than the usual mechanical action. This is much slicker and much easier to play. It's really, really luxury for a village church. Let me show you some stops. Let's start on the swell, the quietest manual. What's really cool about this is the stringy sounds. Really, really lovely angelic sounds. We've also got the usual flute. And then finally the chorus, which is the principal 4 foot and 8 foot. And then over on the grate, the lowest keyboard, we have an open diapason, and add to that the harmonic flute, just makes it slightly louder. You would agree, that's absolutely fantastic for a village church. Absolutely beautiful tone, and it's completely in tune. As well as that, we've got quieter versions, Dulciana, and then one more flute. On the pedals, board on, and then bass flute, It is the best organ I've investigated. I'm just going to say that now because it is. Couplers down here, firstly to couple this keyboard to this one to make the organ louder, also to couple the keyboards to the pedals to make the pedals louder. So if you want all of that stuff, you've got more sound. Using my usual example. It's a really, really good organ. It's actually really fun to play. I rarely have fun playing organs, but I do with this one. Normally it's much more hard work, but I expect this will be a nice instrument to play some music on.
I met a traveller from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." while we're on a theme of poetry and Handel, why don't I read to you a poem sent to me in the comments of last week's video? Seems strange reading some verse about yourself, but it's too good not to. And I dedicate this to everyone in the world who watches my videos. Driving through the countryside, excited for another ride, we find ourselves again beside Mr. Ben Maton. Eagerly we join the search, weaving through the oak and birch, locate the village, find the church, gems of the nation. Doors shut behind, shuts noise outside, and in where quiet does reside. And for a breath our souls can hide, finding peace therein. Respectfully Ben shows us round, we marvel, rapt without a sound, at treasures lost, now newly found and otherwise forgotten. Ben tries the organ out at noon. Sadly, we have cause for gloom. Alas, the organ's out of tune. Our hopes are failing. Ben knows the thing our hopes will raise on. He pulls the open diapason. Angelic music then ensues, with hymns and songs and impromptus. Play on, dear Ben, play on, my son. For worship of the worthy one must go on and on and on.
This poetry and music recital continues on my Patreon with the music of Vaughan Williams. If you're not yet subscribed to Patreon, it's a great way of supporting me and my work and getting plenty more music in return and more time with the Salisbury organist. You can also donate to my work using the PayPal link if you prefer. But in the meantime, one more poem and a mighty hymn by Handel. Oh, to be in England now that April's there, and whoever wakes in England sees some morning unaware that the lowest boughs and the brushwood sheaf round the elm tree bole are in tiny leaf, while the chaffinch sings on the orchard bough, in England now. And after April, when May follows, and the whitethroat builds, and all the swallows, hark, where my blossomed pear tree in the hedge leans to the field and scatters on the clover, blossoms and dewdrops at the bent spray's edge. That's the wise thrush, he sings each song twice over, lest you should think he could never recapture the first fine careless rapture. And though the fields look rough with hoary dew, all will be gay when noontide wakes anew. The buttercups, the little children's dower, far brighter than this gaudy melon flower.